So good morning and welcome everyone to this Zoom call. Thank you so much for coming. Welcome to the Women's Coffee Club. We created this club to provide a safe space for women to share and inspire each other and to learn from a different presenter each week. And we're so fortunate this morning we'll be learning from Toni Taylor, my good friend Toni Taylor. I want to tell you a little bit about Toni. I met Toni in Noble Goldman. It's a platform. Noble Goldman is a platform for those of you who don't know what it is. And about a year ago, she presented gold and silver. So hang on, I'm letting somebody in here, two people. I'll be right back. And sorry, ladies. So I attended her presentation and I said, nah, this is not for me. And I'm so familiar with gold and silver because I was born into a jewelry family. My parents in Indonesia, my grandparents, my parents, they own jewelry business. I live in a jewelry store. It's a jewelry row where on both sides of the streets, they're all jewelry stores. And and I live in the back of the jewelry store. There's a house in the back. And the reason there's so many jewelry stores in Indonesia is because inflation was so high that actually it still is high, where people save money by buying gold instead of putting their money in the bank because the inflation was about 30 to 40%. So so anyway, I'm very familiar with gold as being a very, very good investment vehicle. So I said, Toni, I'm retired. I really don't need to invest anymore in anything. I'm set. Yeah, nah. So fast forward a year later, this was like at the end of January this year or February, I don't remember now. As I was looking for presenters for the Women's Coffee Club, I said, oh, Toni would be a good person to invite. So I invited Toni, and Toni presented the same thing again, except this time her message clicked with me because, as you know, in the United States, the economy is terrible. The economy is just crazy. Inflation is so high. You go to the grocery store, you go to the gas station, you know this, and government is printing money like crazy. Interest rate is high and banks are failing, the Silicon Valley and the Signature Bank, I think. So I said, you know what? I need to rethink this. And then Toni reached out to me because I said, I'm retired. All I want to do is to contribute and give back. And I'm really passionate about helping women. But I'm also very passionate about investment. I used to invest in real estate a lot. And and I thought not everyone can afford real estate. Gold and silver, this could be an extension of what I'm passing on my knowledge on real estate to my daughters. I have 3 daughters and they're all now in their second house. And I said, gold and silver is the next thing, even to teach my kids about it, and to the ladies here at the Women's Coffee Club, because it's not something that everybody's aware of. And this 7K membership has this easy way of buying gold and silver, um, for average people to do. It's really easy, but I'm not telling you all this for you to buy gold and silver. I'm introducing Toni Taylor. When I think of Toni, she's almost like this synonym with the 7K. She's this, how people say you're the average of five people you hang out with. And that 5 people, Toni is one of those my 5, because she has such a high energy. She's so heart-centered and she's so aligned with her core values that she's just somebody I enjoy being a part of. So she said, you may want to rethink this. So I ended up joining 7K like 2 months ago. So Toni, sorry for going in a roundabout way of introducing Toni, but that's how I know Toni. She's the gold and silver lady, Toni Taylor. And her title of the topic for this morning is how to get your mojo back. And so appropriate because Toni is this mojo lady. She has just high, high of energy. So Tony, go ahead and take it from here. Tell us a little bit about your background and then take it from here. Thank you.
Thanks, Rini. That was a very interesting introduction. I used to always be introduced as the Mojo coach, and now I'm the Gold and Silver girl. This is pretty cool. But my work is done here. Excellent. I've done what I needed to do. Thank you, ladies. Thank you for showing up this morning. Thank you for being here. My background is unusual, I'm thinking. I didn't think it was at first. I just thought I was just like another ordinary little girl, growing up in a middle-class family here in Canada. And, as with anything in life, there are pivots, and you don't really think of your life as a little girl as pivoting and pivoting and pivoting. So I was a very, fortunately, I had two parents that were very, I don't know, something in the background. I don't know. I don't know if it's an animal or a baby.
Let me mute. I think it's a dog.
Oh,
see.
I was going to say it doesn't quite sound like my little bulldogs because they sound a little more bullish, but that's okay. Anyway, I loved, I don't know what it was, but for whatever reason, and I put this all on myself. This had nothing to do with my parents. For whatever reason, I had to be perfect at everything. And so as a little girl, I put a lot of pressure on myself. I was an overachiever and a perfectionist. And if that isn't a lot of mental and emotional soul-sucking energy, I don't know what isn't. So I give you this context, this background, because I had my moment in the mirror 10 years ago. So people keep asking me, what is this mojo thing that you talk about? Well, when I was aspiring, as you all know, maybe you don't know, I'm a life member of the LPGA. Well, what's the LPGA? It's the Ladies Professional Golfing Association. I didn't grow up as a little girl thinking, oh, one day I'm going to grow up and I'm going to be a golf pro. It just kind of naturally happened. I was involved with a lot of sports, but I had to be the best at all of it. And I just happened to gravitate towards golf. And I think the reason is, as a little girl, there was 4 of us girls. I was the oldest, and it gave me a chance to hang out with my dad because my dad loved golf. So he used to work at night, and then on weekends he would go play golf. So when he brought home a cut down golf club one day, I was like over the moon, and I started hitting balls at 7 years old into the back of the fence, just banging them around. And it was pretty exciting for me. So that's how my journey began. So I did all kinds of sports, wintertime, fall, but when summer came around, I had to be on that golf course. So that's how it happened. And then of course, kick in the overachiever. And I was off to the races, and I became one of the top juniors in my province of British Columbia. And then I went on to college, which had another moment in the mirror, by the way. And then that's when I switched over to becoming a pro, and I moved to Japan at 23 years old. And my mother thought her right arm had been cut off because back then, wow, that's going back a long ways now, 35 years. There was no internet, there was no, the phones were still attached to the wall with a cord. So I remember showing up in Japan, and I didn't even know who was going to pick me up at the airport in Tokyo. That's how courageous I was. I was fearless. I was absolutely fearless. So when you ask, where's my fire come from? How did that come? I think I was just born that way. Isn't there a song about that? She was just born that way. But here's the key, ladies, that I want to share with you. You are all born with that fire. The question is it still, has it been smoldered out? Is it just sparking a little bit, or is it on fire? Is it flaming? And it doesn't matter, because remember I mentioned the word pivot. We are constantly pivoting in our life all the time. And there's things outside of ourselves, as you know, we cannot control ever. And again, overachiever wanting to also be a control freak, not a good combo. It's a really good way to get things smothered out. Again, not by anybody else or anything, just that whole inner dialogue. So when I speak of mojo, it was just kind of my essence. So you can think of your mojo as your soul, your inner essence, your je ne sais quoi, that everybody talks about energy, right? So I just refer to all of those adjectives as mojo because it encompasses everything. So we really want to start to understand, as they say, to know thyself. And we hear these taglines all the time, but do we really know ourselves? We think we do, but we don't always know exactly the details of who am I? And the greater part of me has always known, that part really deep inside of me has always, for some reason, I don't know, but I just know that I am a spiritual being having a human experience, meaning I'm in this, I call this avatar, my costume, known as Antonia Taylor. And Antonia likes to do certain things, and she goes through this whole life on this giant pivoting path. And sometimes the path that we choose, we go down it too long. And that's when all the drama and the trauma start to happen. And isn't it interesting, as humans in this experience, isn't it interesting that it somehow has to take some kind of traumatic or dramatic situation before we kind of snap out of it and make a pivot? And that's happened twice in my life. And I'll just give you that background. And I'm giving you my story in hopes that it will shine a light on your journey of where you are now. So I like to share with people that we truly can change our essence. So yes, I have this big giant flame inside of me, but it's not always pointing in the right direction. Let's just go with that. And sometimes that flame is so big that when I communicate, as my husband says, I tend to scorch people a little bit. So they come out with no hair on their arms. That's kind of his visualization of me, because I've got so much powerful energy that I don't even realize how much we don't always realize how we're coming across, but I can say I can visualize that because I know how much it's burning inside of me. So sometimes it's hard for me to control when I get really excited about something or really passionate about something. And it just comes out like this, like a blowtorch. So, and again, it's not going to, that type of communication is not going to appeal to everybody, right? And that's okay. And so because of that, I think I scared off a few people in my journey. And then you start to question yourself, am I doing things wrong? I mean, what's wrong with me? Blah, 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 yada, yada, yada. And then you realize as you go on this personal development journey, and I know all of you ladies who are here understand this, we start to get attracted to certain modalities, that make sense to us, and certain ways that make sense to us, certain processes that make sense to us. And in that moment, they just give you so much clarity. And then you travel down that road and realize, not so much anymore. Because again, it's just like, watching a movie or reading a book. Your mind is in a certain place and it's ready to receive certain information. Exactly what Rini says. She wasn't in a place a year ago to receive certain information, but then fast forward a year, now she's in a different place to receive the exact same information. And all of a sudden, bam, it just resonated. Again, what I'm sharing today may resonate and may not. This is why I like to share my journey, so that maybe somewhere along the line, it just goes, ooh, I remember that, or ooh, I remember this. So 2 massive aha moments in my life were the young overachiever, controller, perfectionist, thought I had it all that and worked out in a bag of potato chips because I was the top of everything. I was taught to follow the rules. My dad was very big on rules. So was my mom. We're both in big system jobs, not systems, but there was a routine, a regular routine all the time that had to be met, right? And so in their positions, those certain things had to get done every day. So everything was about rules. So but my dad would say to me, if you follow the rules, honey, the world will reward you. So just keep following the rules. Well, what better way for a perfectionist to just follow the rules? That just makes sense to me, right? So I did. Only to have probably my whole world explode and turned upside down when I ended up in college. So I made my way to college because I was a straight A student and a top athlete. So I got a half scholarship and half of athletic scholarship. And the coach said to me, I can't give you a full ride, but if you make the team, which is the traveling team, the team that goes on the road trips, if you make the team and you stay on the team for the road trips, I will give you a full ride your following year. So I ended up getting, as I mentioned, the academic scholarship. Anyway, fast forward, I made the team, made all the qualifyings, made all the road trips, did everything I was supposed to do. And she called me into her office one day and she said, Toni, I'd like to know where you stand with the team and with the school and your golf and, how do you feel about what's happening? I said, oh, and I told her, I said, I'm really excited. And she goes, well, I need you to make a decision. I said, oh, about what? She goes, well, I need you to choose between golf and your studies. I go, what do you mean? She goes, well, she says, I just need to know, how committed are you to your golf? And I said, well, I'm doing everything, blah, blah, blah. You get the whole gist. I chose golf. She goes, oh, that's fantastic because I really want you still to be on the team. And I said, does this mean I'm getting my full ride now? You know what her answer was? No. And I was like, excuse me? I go, but you just asked me how committed I was to the team and my golf. And you just asked me to choose between my studies and golf, and I choose golf. And now I'm not getting my full ride, but I did everything you asked me to do. And I made the team and the whole thing. I did everything she told me I needed to do to get a full ride scholarship. So I could let my studies go a little bit, right? Because now I'd get a full ride. She goes, oh no, I'm giving your other half of your scholarship to somebody else that's coming in from England. That was my aha moment. The little rule follower, the little perfectionist. Okay. The one that was told over and over her whole life, if you follow the rules, you will be rewarded. That was my moment when the Toni Taylor that you all see here showed up. The one that was back there wouldn't say anything if she had a mouthful of it. She followed the rules. Even if she didn't agree with them, she followed the rules. That was my aha moment. And that was not a pretty moment, by the way. There was all kinds of support coming out of my out of my inner child. And needless to say, my whole world just blew up. Okay, so that was a massive paradigm shift for me. Massive. Like the whole just threw everything out. Okay, so why do I explain this? Because we are humans that this mind takes over. Okay. And it's so important that we start to learn how to drop into our heart. I have spent all my life in my head and I had to learn how to get in my heart. And you think, well, that's just crazy. I mean, you're so passionate, Toni. You must have, of course you're in your heart. But that's a very different type of energy, right? Passion and really knowing thyself. Remember, know thyself, knowing who you are, where you come from, what do you believe, what are your values, where are you going, what's important to you. I didn't know none of that. Everybody says, Toni, what's your favorite color? I don't know. well, what do you like? I don't know. Right? I was so disconnected from myself because I was so fixated on where I was going. There was no connection to self or this heart. Okay. This is so important for us humans. This is how your soul slowly dies, is when this avatar takes over, this human mind takes over, and you lose your mojo. You lose your essence. The fire in my belly was still there. So I call it fire in my belly more than fire in my heart. The fire in my belly was still there about what I wanted to do and where I wanted to go. I just wasn't sure anymore. So I always say to people, you all know how to do your own personal journey. You're all going to find your own tools that you like. But the one thing that has been the greatest tool for me is getting out of this avatar brain. That has been the biggest thing. They say that ego is not in the heart. Ego is in the mind. And for me, ego means edging God out. And boy, was I edging God out. And when you're edging God out, your higher power, your supreme creator, whatever you decide is this higher essence, okay? When you are disconnected from that, you are no longer in flow. Everything is a grind. Everything is hard. Everything is just grit. Hey, people talk about this. Oh, what's the difference between success and failure? Grit. Think about that word. Does that word feel good? No. Can you have success with grit? Absolutely. But limited, very limited. I've had lots of success in my life, but limited. And just ask an overachiever how happy they are. Overachievers are some of the unhappiest people I've ever met in my life. Sad, but true. And the reason is because of all this programming. So I have this saying, and I know you've probably heard it too, is that I think Joe Dispenza talks about it a lot too. You know, you really become your personality, but you need to change your personality in order to go in a different direction of where you want to be. Well, where does that personality comes from? It comes from all that stuff that's been piled on you over the years. So now I've had this massive paradigm shift. Now I don't know who the heck I am or what the heck I'm doing, where I'm going, right? It's a pretty scary place. And I'm sure many of you have been there, but you have to have that moment. Your higher power finally says enough, right? And you need to start moving in a different direction. And that's what happens. So we have to go through these dramas and these traumas to have these aha moments. And I said, I don't want to have any more of these aha moments. I mean, that was just so painful. So I went on a journey to try and discover who I am and try to find things that maybe I do like instead of what somebody tells me I like. So it's a fascinating journey. So we have these thoughts. And then once these thoughts come into play, we have these feelings. And then these feelings come into play because we are emotional beings. And then once these feelings come, then we take action. And then those actions create a result. So isn't it interesting? I've kept going on this kind of program. Thoughts, feelings, actions, results. Okay, that'll make sense. Thoughts, feeling. Okay, I'm getting it, right? But the next aha moment comes from, where the it's come from? Right? It's like you got to go like a little bit deeper. And that was my next aha moment. When I woke up one morning, and I think I told you this story. But I'll just share it again. Was my next aha moment was when I was listening to a woman who was in my profession. She hadn't done anything. She did the list like like, what the heck? And she's just being accolade here and there. And I'm thinking, did I miss something? Did I get off the wrong boat or what? Right? Like there's that ego creeping in again. I couldn't even celebrate what she was being celebrated for because I was so caught up in ego again. And that was my next big aha moment, because something had happened the day before. And you know what it was? It was a very simple question. A person I hadn't seen for a long time had said, Toni, so great to see you. You look amazing. I said, oh, thank you so much. They said, are you happy? Do you know what my answer was? I went, well, I'm not unhappy. And I just kind of carried on. And I came home, and then that drama was, and then I was just thinking about it the whole day, and I was thinking about it and thinking about it. And then the next day, that whole thing with my colleague had happened. Somebody I didn't even really know. It just happened to pop up in our LPGA feed. And how angry I got. And then I thought, and then that question came up. And I was thinking about, well, I'm not unhappy. And that's when I just had that next explosive moment. I was so angry. And then I realized the anger was not directed at her. It was me. I fell into the trap again. And it's like, it's so easy to fall into the trap. And so that's what I wanted to share with you, ladies. I want you to know that when you have this aha moment, do not, please, I beg you, do not beat yourself up. Love yourself, hold yourself, caress yourself, forgive yourself, because it is so painful, but it is the greatest pain ever. It's kind of like giving birth. How many of you have given birth? and you're up there going, oh, mother, never again. But what do? Oh yeah, that's right. We did it again. Except me, I did not do it again. I had my boy 25 years ago. Actually, just a few days ago, 25 years ago. I did a natural birth at home. And I was one of those people who was like, give me the drugs, hook me up. I don't want to feel any pain. And then as I started to research, I was like, oh yeah, no, we're not doing that. We're not doing that. We're not doing, next thing you know, I'm doing a home birth, all natural. And so this is what I mean. We start to dig a little bit deeper as we drop in where? Out of here and into our heart. Out of here and into our heart. And that's what happens. So what you have to do is, when I started to look into where my thoughts were, like, why am I thinking these things? Where are those thoughts coming from? Are they coming from a belief that I really hold to be true? And is it serving me? Because if you're freaking unhappy, or you're angry, or you're in all these negative feelings, you better take another look at what you believe. You also better start looking, as Rini says, who you're hanging out with. Because the people you hang out with have a great deal to do with how you start thinking. Because how you start thinking is how you start feeling. And how you start feeling is how you start acting. And how you start acting is what's going to end up showing up in your world. Right? Good, bad, or indifferent. That's just the way that it is. So when people say, if you're not getting the results that you want, you need to really step back and start doing the reverse, right? Start doing the reverse. So results, I'm not getting the results. Okay, well, what actions am I taking or not taking, right? How was I feeling about that when I was going into it, right? Where was my thinking? Well, why did I choose that way? And where did it really all stem from all that long ago? So this whole journey of being in this costume, this avatar, is all about having a human experience. And guess what? It's all good. It's all good, because each one of those experiences is taking you to the next level. The issue is with most humans is that we tend to dwell in things that no longer serve instead of moving on. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not telling you not to feel your feelings. If you're angry, you feel angry. If you're frustrated, you need to feel frustrated. You need to feel those feelings. The worst thing we ever did to children is, oh, for heaven's sakes, get over it. It's not that big a deal. When we start to dishonor how somebody else feels, that puts on another layer. There's nothing wrong with the feeling. What I'm saying is, don't just stay there forever. Because what I'm finding is that the reason why people get stuck is because they linger in that low vibration too long, is what it is. Instead of moving on, instead of just honoring it. I catch myself all the time. I have my moments. Oh yeah, that little avatar of mine pops out every once in a while, that fire girl. And then it's kind of like, ooh, that was a good one. It was a good thing nobody was standing in front of me, because they would have been torched. But I'm at that point now that I can catch it, right? I allow it to happen. I make sure there isn't anybody around me, right? Have my moment. I go, oh, okay, we're good. And I move on. I go, wow, that was interesting. And then that's when I start to ask my questions. Where did that come from? Or was that just something that just needed to release at that moment? And I need to get out of my head, drop back into my heart. That's where I find all the trouble happens, is when we're doing all this stuff up here. But this is why they keep talking about breathing. Get into the breath. Another really powerful thing that happened with me when I was learning about the breath, because we do a lot of breathing and obviously in sports. But when somebody shared with me the most important part about the breath, whether you're holding it or inhaling, exhaling, was those moments between the breath. The point of the inhale and the exhale, or the release, that's where that space just drifts off. That was such a powerful moment to me, where I really felt the most, when I'm most at peace, was in between the in and the out. That made a lot of sense to me. It might resonate with you, I don't know. But here's what I do know. When you do not take time for you, whatever it is, I don't care what it is, but just whatever makes you get out of your head and into your heart. I know Omeka's here. She gets into her drumming. That's her thing. That's really cool, right? Some people paint, right? Some people just love to go for a walk. Some people just love to sit and breathe. I love looking at nature. So I'm very blessed now that we've moved to the Vancouver Island and I have this amazing view. So if I get too caught up in my business here and I can't get out to walk, I literally just can sit here, turn my chair around and just start breathing in nature. So I'm very blessed that way. But again, you have to be conscious of it. You really have to be consciously aware of when you're getting too much back into your head, and find a way to drop into your heart. So one of the things that helped this mojo girl, after my big aha, the very last one, I really call it the dark night of my soul, that was the big one, was that I had to learn to start taking time for me before my day started. If I do not do certain things before my day starts, I am in watch out blowtorch mode, because Toni's in reaction. There's no sitting back. So I have to really make sure that I take, even if it just means 15 minutes. When I was doing that dark night, I was up to 2.5 hours before I had to start my day. I literally had to start setting my clock. I had to start setting it further back and further back and further back. That's how much garbage I had to start releasing and letting go of. So I was up at like 5 a.m. And so sometimes I wouldn't, I remember one time I was so deep in meditation and through my processes, it was 8:30 by the time I got my day going. That's how much I had been holding for so long. We don't even realize it. We don't even realize it. So now I've been able to streamline it a little bit. So I always say to people, find something where you can go into silence. I used to do affirmations. Now I do afformations, it means that I'm asking myself questions. How can I be of service today? You know, what do I need to be right now? And who do I need to be to show up to be in service today? So what are you being? It's not who, it's like, who are you being? How are you showing up? Well, you're going to show up in reactionary blowtorch, girl. If I don't do that moment to settle into my heart, right? To be in gratitude. So that whole, so it's silence. Then I go into affirmations, basically being in gratitude is where I am at. I'm in full on gratitude. Gratitude was the thing that got me out of my head. Well, it was in my head, but I could easily switch because I used to put these little sticky notes everywhere. Gratitude, gratitude. So I would literally like see it because I'm a visual girl, which leads me to the next one, visual. Do some type of visualization of how you actually see your life. And once you see your life, because your imagination, did you know that your mind doesn't know the difference between imagination and reality? We used to do this all the time in golf. Constantly. I never even thought of transferring it into my life. Wow, who knew that? Right? So it's interesting. I had all these tools in golf, but I never used them in my personal life. So it was kind of weird. But then it was another one of those little moments like, oh, I used to do this all the time. Oh, I wonder why I didn't do it in my life. Anyway, visualization, because when you start to imagine and really hold that essence of that vision, you will feel it. Remember, we're feeling entities. This avatar is a feeling entity. You'll feel it in your cellular. I always know when somebody's telling the truth, or there's a big aha moment coming, or somebody's speaking something, my hair stands up. I call it my God bumps. And so that's how I know. That's where the discernment comes in. Is this your truth? You'll just ask yourself, just drop it in your heart and ask yourself. But visualization, so silence, affirmations, your gratitude, your visualization, okay? Then also some exercise. I think it's really important to get this body moving because we are cellular and it can get stuck. We get crystallined and whatever. So whether that's yoga or walking or stretching or deep breathing or just, throwing your arms around, I don't care, dance. Okay. Something, yoga, right? Yeah. And then and then I like to read. I do a little bit of reading, or I listen to a podcast, something where I've got some type of other influence coming in. And the last part is scripting. I like to write down a few things. And I need to do these things. I need to do these things on a daily basis for myself. And that's how the Mojo Coach was born. Was taking my journey of my big aha moments and then being able to transfer them from my golf life and into my personal life. And when I came online, it was a big transition for me because again, another learning curve. And I really wasn't sure where that was going. And as it turned out, my mentorship of my journey is now being passed on to my team members. So I'm gone from coach now to team leader. And I had no idea when I was starting to learn about financial literacy, how important it would be for so many people for me to share this. So now all that mentorship and all that coaching that I had, I'm able to share it with people so that they can now find their financial, success. Because the one thing that I've learned is people work on their spirituality, their emotions, their mental, their physical. They spend a lot of time doing that, but they do not work on their financial essence, which is another, that's my next aha moment, is like how many incredibly gorgeous souls I am meeting, but they are in poverty consciousness. This is shocking to me, really shocking, because we are more alike than we are different. But that difference is your message. And that difference is your greatness. That is your key. That is your key that unlocks everything. So to know thyself, why are so many still in this poverty consciousness? Financial literacy is so extremely important. We are still here. Yes, I'm a spiritual being, but I'm having a human experience in this realm right now. And this realm requires an energy tool, and money's just energy, an energy tool that needs to exchange and barter for appreciation for other goods and services. I'm choosing God's money now, gold and silver, to do that, because the system that we got plugged into is of a very low vibration, as we're starting to realize, aren't we? Right? And then all the programming and the beliefs that have gotten attached to that, because they never taught us this in school. Isn't that interesting? So here's something to think about. As you go there and drop in from your head into your heart, you're now raising your mojo. You're now becoming part of your real essence in this realm. Now we want to really have abundance so that we can share with others and be the ones who are empowered to make those decisions and not have somebody else make those decisions for us. All that it does for me is gives me more choices. So nobody can dictate to me who I am and what I can and cannot do. As the saying goes, he who holds the gold makes the rules. You know how much I feel about rules. So I have this saying, it says, without financial literacy, it's very expensive to be poor and easy to stay rich. That's a pretty big statement. We really need to have financial literacy. We have not been taught it, and we need to learn. We need to get out of the system that was placed here because it's not serving. It's a very insidious plan, and it's been proven over and over again. It fails every time, and it's been proven over and over. All the ones on the bottom ain't the ones getting the rewards that are following all the rules, right? So that's my journey, and that's my story, and I hope it helps you have some aha moments. Thank you.
Thank you, Toni. That was quite an inspiration to listen to your journey. I had no idea. So does any of you have any questions for Toni? Suzanne, you always have questions.
I haven't seen Suzanne for a while. Hi, beautiful lady.
Hello. Oh my gosh. I think I could take the whole rest of the time. So Toni, I'd love to sit down with you and just have a conversation, because you and I are parallel all along. Yes, rule follower. Rule follower, when the parents are making the rules, is not your best friend. And it keeps you stuck for a long time. I wrote in here, invalidation, because they believe they knew what the rules were and what rules I should follow. And those rules include my brothers being ahead of me. And I finally said, I remember going away to camp, getting away from the family, because the only time I felt me was away from them. And how sad that you had to leave your blood family to feel you.
Yeah.
And that's where I have ended up at 55 years old. I'm like, the more I stay in this rule-centered life, the worse I am.
Right?
As soon as I came to know who I was, and I still laugh. I laugh, but I'm out of tears, out of pain, because I was with my mom about a month ago, and she's like, "Oh, you're still going with this autistic thing, huh?" Just because you didn't follow and go as deep as I did doesn't mean it doesn't exist.
Yeah.
I get it. You don't want to blame me to blame you. I don't blame you. It's something that happened inside of you when you were carrying me. That's not your fault.
No, that's exactly right.
I'm euphoric about it. Why can't you be happy for me? And then it's the whole thing of my going into Brave Thinking Institute. That's a cult. It's a cult because she doesn't believe in the possibilities that come from it. And therefore she's thinking that it's bad because it's not under her control. And that's what she said to me a number of times. It's like, I think it's a cult because you're no longer listening to me. Wait, what? Because you can't control me anymore? It's a cult? Really? And then, and then this last time, I finally thought that we were starting, my 2022, when the only person who validated me and my intelligence passed away, leaving me with everybody else in the family left who don't understand what mom did to me because she didn't do it to them. So therefore she didn't do it to me. And I'm like,
It's interesting, isn't it? The dynamics of, I love first of all, I want to validate you for sharing that and validate the fact that you understand that our parents only know what they know, right? I mean, I think back when some of the things that I did, I'm thinking, oh, that wasn't so good, and then I'll say to my son, I said, just so you know, I was still learning too. Like, sorry about that. It's like, but
that's the thing. It's like, I know that she parented them separately because I know the way my grandfather parented her, which was not too good, but I accept that. And my 2022 is bad because I finally said, this is the end. I can't live under your rules anymore. And I got chastised for drawing that line in the sand. Losing the one parent.
It's interesting you to say that when you also said, I wanted to also validate, isn't it interesting? You couldn't be who you are until you left the circle, right? Like until you left the family. And I remember that too. It's similar thing. Like when the reason why I got it, honestly, the reason why I think I got addicted to golf is when I went on my first golf trip, I think I was like 12 or something like that. I thought, oh, I need more of this. It was like freedom. It's just like, oh, great. Right? It's like, and all of a sudden I got this. So I know exactly what you're saying, because then all of a sudden you're stuck back in that role of sister, whatever that role is, you're now back.
Pleasing daughter.
Yeah.
To validate her and this is where I want to end because I want everybody else to have a chance. I finally thought that we were finally coming back because I've been taught to try and keep improving the relationship, thinking I was improving the relationship. The kicker was about a little bit before Easter, my mom said, so tell me, what is it that you think made me a bad mother? Like, Mom, let's just enjoy our visit.
Oh.
That would be the whole letter told you exactly where I was pained. I'm not going through that again. I am not repeating 2022. I have a ton of gray hair trying to deal with what 2022 did to me and uncover it. I finally feel like I've uncovered it. I am not going back down. I said, let's just have a good visit. And then this past weekend, my brothers came. My brothers came to visit. Last time she said, we'll spend more time with you. My brothers came. We were supposed to go out to dinner on Friday night. Oh, your brother's not getting in till late. We'll definitely do Sunday. 1 o'clock. The boys are going out to golf. Okay, great. We'll do something after they get home from golf. And then 4 o'clock. Oh, we're home now. We're going to stay here. We're not going to go out. Whatever. And then people say, why are you so blasé to your mom now? I'm like, have I not given you enough examples?
It's interesting.
Thank you, Suzanne. That's amazing. Anyway, thank you for your share.
That's a transition.
Yeah, really. Tamara, you have your hands up. Go ahead. Thank you, Suzanne.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So I want to apologize, Toni. I think that was my dog making that noise earlier. I was like, when you said something, I looked down at her. I was like, oh, I think that's my dog. Anyway, totally am on the same path. And I'm at that point where, I did the 2.5, 3 hour morning meditations and just trying to get all that junk out. And I'm at the stage now where, I don't know, I guess more like forgiving myself and forgiving those around me. Just coming to we're all on our own journey and we're all trying to understand what's happened and, what's going on in our lives, and having that, the compassion for others. So like my oldest daughter is about to deliver, and so I'm like really excited because it's my first grandbaby. And thank you. And I send her things, and you talk about how you can be too much for people, and singe the hairs on them. Like trying to be like that, not cross that line with my kids, but yet give them that love, that encouragement, and validation, like you're just giving Suzanne, just a validation of their feelings. And that stuff it's okay to feel, it's okay to ask questions, it's okay to seek out knowledge. But I guess my question is, like, where is that line? When do you say, okay, here's this information. If it's too much, then, just let me know. I try to do that with her. I'll send her like a Joe Dispenza thing, and hey, just listen to the first 10 minutes. And, her husband's depressed. So I'm like, here's some, he might like it too. And I did this yesterday. So it's funny that you're on today, because I'm like, oh my gosh, did I overstep those bounds again? So
No.
how do you know where those lines are?
It's a great question. I mean, how do you know? I'll just tell you what my mother has been saying to me. My mother and I did not have a great relationship, just so you know. We were butting heads a lot, being the number one daughter. And then there's a big gap between all the daughters, except for the first two, and then the next two were big gaps. And so I ended up, I say, raising the last two, because my mom had to work full time. So both my parents worked full time. So there was a lot of angst between my mother and I. So it's just in these latter parts of the years, Tamara, that my mother and I have become extremely close, because she's been awake for a very long time. She's just a wealth of knowledge. And I, like you and all of the ladies here, I do not blame my parents. They did the best that they could. As a matter of fact, I had a very good upbringing. They loved me, and they provided a very wonderful home. We didn't do all the traveling stuff like a lot of other people did, or have the fancy clothes, but we were in sports, and sports aren't cheap. So that was the playoff. But my mom would tell me, because we get deep into these conversations because of all the crazy that's going on right now, and you want to share so badly, information. And so her big word now is discernment. She says, take the information that you want to share, drop it in your heart, and have the discernment to listen within and say, is it time? Right? Just have the discernment. Just take that pause. Just that, I know it's hard, but take that pause and go, is it time? Ask the question, is it time to share? Because there's a lot of times that I'm texting people, because I'm doing my business, and I need to, and then it's like, and I hear this word, no. I was like, oh, just put this down. Right, I'll just put that down. And then there's other times I get this hit going, oh, you need to send this to, like, now. So you need to go, because you do all the work, Tamara, just go in there and just hold it in your heart and say, is it time? Show me what it is that I can send. Right?
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate that.
Thank you. We're at the top of the hour. So if you need to leave, go ahead and leave. But does anyone have any other questions? Sue, do you want to say something?
Oh, no, I know we're getting at the end of our time. I just want to say thank you so much, Toni. Everything you said just resonated and just really thoroughly enjoyed and was just completely engrossed in every moment of your of your talking. And I'm ADHD, so that's a huge compliment.
Oh, wow. Thank you so much. Wow.
So yeah, so thank you so much. And
Very welcome. Thank you for coming today. It means a lot. I know that, we have so many of you have such beautiful gifts, and your story, Sue, will really inspire a lot of people when you're ready to share it. As I mentioned, we are more alike than we are different, but that little difference is the key that unlocks your greatness and your message for others. It's their roadmap too. So this is why, when I came online originally, I wanted to start I think I told everybody I wanted to start a club that says, oh, the club would be called Unhappy Overachievers. And I had my mentor say, yeah, nobody will ever join that because nobody will ever admit to it. And actually, they're right. They wouldn't. It takes time to admit, right? Those moments. But now I realize that those, whatever we call those negative thoughts that we think about, are actually some of our greatest pivoting moments for the keys to help other people unlock their greatness too, right? So thank you for sharing that, Sue.
Thank you. Anyone else before we close? Omeka,
Yeah.
go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to thank you for that head to heart.
You're welcome.
Yeah, head to heart. I really felt that in my heart. And yeah, because I've stayed here a lot and even using me as an analogy, but with the drumming. Yeah, because there's something that's locked up. And yeah, I have all these my own rules and thoughts the way I should be. And yeah, getting rid of those rules, because really there's nobody else telling me what to do anymore. So it's what we internalize and then use on ourselves that we have control over now. So blame and shame and all that other stuff is, it needs to come up, but it needs to go away. It needs to transform into action and doing what it is we really want. So yeah, getting in touch with what I really want. While you were talking, I was thinking of scenarios that I've been putting off and afraid to do. And I went from here, like energetically and physically, and seeing it from here to here. And my purpose for doing it in the first place, and my why for doing the business, and regardless of the business, my serving and helping people was what became important. And I was like, well, it's okay. Whatever you decide to do, it's up to you. It's up to me. But your purpose is to serve, and you can't serve without communicating. So it's okay to communicate. And it's not about messing up or doing it wrong. It's just get the message across as concise and clear and quick as possible, because everybody's busy, and put the offer on the table and shut up and wait for an answer and keep it moving. So thank you.
Thank you, Omeka. And
Sorry,
Kathleen,
yeah.
it's good to see you here. I know you were supposed to be presenting today and you had your son's partner is in the hospital. Hope everything is okay.
Thanks, Rini. I appreciate it. I'm just about to dash off to work for a little bit and then back to the hospital. So thank you so much, Toni, for covering for me. I really appreciate it. And that was wonderful. That was really, I really resonated with a lot of what she said. And I did mention in the chat, I don't know if anybody saw it, some things she talked about doing before she woke up are in Hal Elrod's book. It's called The Miracle Morning. I don't know if you've ever read it, Toni, but it's these 5 things that you should absolutely do every morning before you start your day. And it's really life-changing.
Yeah, it is. Thank you, Kathleen. Yeah, it really is. My mentor, well, not my mentor, he's a dear friend of ours. He was one of the ones that shared it with me, and he says, "Do you do this in the morning?" I said, "Well, I do that one, and random, And he says, "You should really think about, adding this and adding this." And I thought, oh, I could try that. And so that's what I ended up doing. I ended up just adding more things is what I do. But yes, you're right. It does. When I heard that before, I said, oh, I bet you that's where he got it from.
Yes. Yeah, I would imagine so. And I just found him by accident when I was doing my Airstream trip out west. I was in Sedona, and there was a documentary about his life, which is incredible. So you can also watch the documentary on Hal Elrod. But yeah, it was really good. So
Yeah.
thanks again, Toni, for
Thank
covering for me. I appreciate it.
I hope
Yeah,
And
thank you, Kathleen. We're 5 minutes after the hour, and I know I did a long intro for Toni, which we went overboard and we were late because I provided the wrong Zoom link. But before we close, Lori or Faith, do you have anything to share, or do you want to say something before we go?
Faith had wrote something.
Lori,
Yeah. She's
hi. Hi, Lori.
Work. So, but interestingly enough, I'm a gold and silver girl too, because I manage a jewelry store. But at any rate, yeah, so like I'm literally like putting diamonds out right now.
Oh, wow.
But yeah, so I really appreciated the presentation. It was really great. And I actually had, you know, I'm in a process of lots of different life changes right now. But interestingly enough, when you talk about your morning routine, after coming out of the Brave Thinking Institute, I was actually doing all of those things faithfully. And then I got into a position in my life where, you know, I got into a relationship, and very quickly after getting into the relationship, I became a caregiver. And it really changed how I did things in a day. And so I stopped doing some of those best practices. And after, and, you know, and I kept on saying, oh, you know, I really need to get back into that. I really need to start doing that. And, you know, a day would go, and then another day, and then another day, and I never did. And then after last week's presentation with you guys, I actually said, you know, you got to get out of your own head. And I started doing all of those things, and my energy has came back. My whole thought processes are coming back. So it is super incredibly important. And something you said at the beginning of your presentation was about sometimes people stay in things too long and it no longer serves them. And I think that that is really such a powerful statement. And it just had light bulbs going off with me, because I have a lot of people stretching me in many different places. And I've always been a yes girl. And, you know, so I want to do everything. And, you know, some of those things maybe don't serve me anymore. And so I'm really trying to get quiet with that inner spot in me to be able to figure out exactly which direction I want to go. So thank you for the presentation.
Oh, you're welcome. Well, Lori, just call me anytime if you want to talk it out. We'll figure it out.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you, Lori. Faith, you're the last one here. Do you have anything you'd like to say?
She said, good talk. Thank you.
Yeah, I did say good talk, and I wanted to thank Toni for the reminder that about the rules, because I think I always wanted to be a good girl. I bet most of us here always wanted to be a quote unquote good girl, so we could get the love we wanted and the success we wanted. And I got the message along the way, if I was a good girl, I could have the love and success I wanted. And that's, you know, I had my aha moment for that, as we probably all have, that's not exactly the way it goes. So, you
The way
know,
they taught us. Wait a minute.
yeah, wasn't I good enough? But it's rules are not instructions. It occurs to me rules are not instructions. Like, we could use instruction and guidance on how to be our best selves, but rules are not the way to get there. Rules are set maybe initially, like, to keep us safe. Like, the rule is don't go play in traffic.
Yeah.
Rules turn into control though. And control never leads to us being able to fully embrace being our best self. So that was a good instruction this morning, and I thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Faith. Thank you
Faith.
for sharing
Thank you.
that.
And Toni, thank you so much.
Welcome. Thank you, ladies. That was great. I wasn't
Yeah.
sure where I was going with it. I was just wanted to be in my heart, and I just thought one thing that I've learned on this online space is that when people share their story, it just seems to make up light bulb moments for others. And this is why I would say it may resonate with you, it may not, but I will share my journey and maybe something will come up for you. And so that's what I wanted to do today. And I thank Rini for asking me to, and thank you, Kathleen. I'm sorry you weren't able to share today. So I'm glad I was able to step up. So thanks, ladies.
Thank you so much. Thank you, ladies, and hope to see all of you next week. Bye now. Have a great week.
Bye, everybody. Thanks again.
Bye.
And prayers for Paul, please.
Yes, prayers for sure.
Thank